Good evening. Welcome to our final class for this semester, music management seminar, music industry seminar. I'm Steve Leeds, but then I guess you know that. So this is the last class. I appreciate everybody coming to class this semester. Hopefully we've imparted some knowledge that you'll find useful and helpful. I thought a good way to end the semester might be to talk about live music. And when you talk about live music in North America, and when you talk about live music globally, there's really one entity that is overall. It's called Live Nation. And I said, well, there's a lot of employees at Live Nation, but I found somebody who has a great overview. They're not a local person, so they have a much broader view than just somebody who happened to be in the business and based on the East Coast or New York in specific, Sean Striegel. And Sean comes from the West Coast. He's a senior VP overseeing some national tours, as well as locally here, the Wellmont Theater in Montclair, as well as the theater in Westbury, Long Island. And I just thought I'd invite Sean. There's a lot of stuff going on out there as we look towards the summer festival season. As we look at some of the successes, some of the question marks, some of the things that were oops, but I thought it would be great that we could have Sean here. So I like to start off each of these classes, Sean, with asking people, other than driving your car here, how did you get here?
Well, it's a great question. How did my career start off as a promoter? I was a musician on the West Coast when I was, a late teenager. To speed up the process of becoming a promoter, I guess.
What'd you play?
Bass in rock bands, but what a lot of people don't know, I'm classically trained in all the woodwinds. Yeah. So I was the kid with the mohawk who actually knows how to play a bassoon. Go figure.
By the way, most of the people here, in fact, all of them have to be musicians of sorts. So everybody here is a musician. Or a songwriter or a vocalist.
That's cool. But basically, long story short, I wasn't a very good musician. Smart enough to recognize that. My friends were. Their bands started to become popular. And it just became a matter of, instead of being on the stage with them, it turned more into me starting to promote their shows. And here we are 27 years later. That's when I made the decision to become a promoter. And, you do what you got to do when you're young. I was leading a dual life of working a day job, but also being a concert promoter on the side. And in the 90s, I had to make the decision, which way am I going to go? Am I going to retire with a suit and tie, or am I going to retire in the music business? And I continued with the music business.
So how does one wake up one morning and go, I'm going to be a promoter? Because which area of the West Coast?
Orange County.
Okay, so pretty competitive market. There was.
Well, it wasn't. In the 80s and 90s, it wasn't a competitive market.
It was open.
Yeah, for the longest time, Orange County was really not even considered to be a destination on a route book. It really was Los Angeles, San Diego, and there's 3 hours in between of driving, a couple million people. Orange County has a very strong fiscal.
So explain geographically for us East Coast snobs, what's Orange County in relationship to LA?
Orange County in relationship to LA is 45 miles south, but okay, just the same as out here. Actually, not even as bad as out here, but it takes you an hour and a half to drive from LA to Orange County.
So it's south?
Yes.
Okay.
And San Diego is down there at the bottom, right next to Mexico.
So what kind of venues or clubs or facilities were there that you could promote in?
There were a lot of bars. There were a couple of small ballrooms, one or two concert halls that were existing at the time. There was the famous Golden Bear in Huntington Beach, which had been there since the 60s and was really well known. Long Beach, which was just north of Orange County, was on the border of Orange County and Los Angeles. The area called Long Beach that just had this really great music scene in it always. so there was a lot of that, but also you travel a little bit south and you get deeper into Orange County, and there was always this thriving scene like away from the coast in the Riverside, Pomona area that was really making a lot of noise. You had a lot of nightclubs out there that also did bands, but then also the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano.
Famous.
Well, that was my first house gig. That was the first place that I was the in-house promoter for. I've been an independent promoter for a long time, and
Who were your competitors? Were any of the big guys around yet?
well, towards the end, before I made the move over to House of Blues, obviously Clear Channel was active at the time as a promoter. Golden Voice, but Golden Voice wasn't AEG at the time. AEG didn't exist at the time, and I worked well with the Golden Voice guys, so it was just a matter of finding the right rooms.
So then House of Blues came knocking?
Yeah, there was in 2000, or actually, yeah, in 2000, the House of Blues decided they were going to open up a venue in Orange County, and they approached me about working there. They had other people that they had lined up that they were talking to in sorts, but in just a short couple of years, I'd really made a name for myself and kind of become a presence in Orange County, a pretty well-known promoter at that point. And when they decided to open the venue, they approached me, and I had to give it a lot of hard thought, because at that point my thought was, I'm an independent promoter. I don't have to answer to anyone, just me and my partners. And going to work for a corporation like House of Blues, I had to give it a second thought. But I will tell you this, that it was probably the greatest decision I ever made.
Now, House of Blues had how many? What was it, the one in Hollywood?
Hollywood was open. At that point, there was only, by the time Anaheim opened, there was only seven House of Blues. And the Boston one was still the original in Cambridge.
So you went to work, so was it your responsibility Hollywood and Anaheim? Is that
No,
right?
my responsibility was strictly Orange County, because
Oh, okay.
it was the first time that a House of Blues had been built in not a major market. You had Chicago, you had Los Angeles, you had all of those, and it was the first time that they'd really ventured into the secondary market. And so there was a lot of focus and attention on that. It was also on Disney property, so it required a little bit of additional work and a hand-holding as that goes. But as things progressed over the years, I ended up doing shows at the colleges, at the Brenton Event Center in UCI, which held 5,000 people instead of 1,000 capacity House of Blues. One thing that was amazing, and even through the fact that Clear Channel became Live Nation, which then purchased House of Blues, and even through all that, I got to tell you one thing that's pretty amazing within our system is the communication between all of us buyers. There's not that many buyers in our system, and we're responsible for thousands of concerts every single year. And the fact that we have the ability to pick up the phone, send an email, text each other constantly just to ask questions or receive feedback on things has been great. Back then, when we were House of Blues, we were rapidly growing, and it was a very, tight-knit group of about 12 people that really were responsible for all of the bookings.
Wow.
That everything House of Blues did. And one of the most striking comments that I got about House of Blues, or that I'd ever heard about House of Blues, was when House of Blues celebrated, it's funny, this year we're turning 25. House of Blues is, and I remember 15 years ago when House of Blues was turning 10 as a company. Was turning 10 years old. We had 10 venues. And there was this great interview with Kevin Morrow, who was the head of talent for all of House of Blues at the time. And he made a comment that House of Blues had become a household name. And if you thought about it, there was only 10 venues across the U.S. That was it. So for something with such small touch points, if you will, for people to be able to get in there and actually experience the House of Blues experience, for it to have become such a well-known name, it was a pretty good testament to those people that had dedicated their time to it.
So just for the purposes of everybody here, the lineage or the start, so there was Clear Channel,
Correct.
which, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, it's now iHeart. So Clear Channel was iHeart, and back then they were also in the live music business before they consolidated with the broadcast. So they were there, and then the House of Blues was an independent company,
Correct.
and Clear Channel bought the House of Blues, and it became Live Nation, or
No, Clear Channel first split
it
off
split
into their
the broadcast,
broadcasting and then concerts, and then about a year and a half later,
Live Nation
Clear Channel concerts became Live Nation.
became Live Nation, and then they bought House of Blues.
Correct.
And that's how Live Nation's sort of roots became, and they were able to pick up some key executives, as you mentioned, Kevin Morrow and yourself, amongst some of the folks. So when do you move from the West Coast to New York?
By the time 2007 rolls around, I was the director of clubs and theaters on the West Coast. So I was responsible
For Live Nation?
for Live Nation, House of
Nationally?
Blues. No, for the West Coast. So I was responsible for Los Angeles down to the Mexico border and basically Catalina over to Vegas.
Wow.
So anything that got booked below an amphitheater, I was responsible for,
Including Vegas.
including Vegas. Yeah. So it was an interesting time. So 2007, I'll never forget it. It's 4th of July. I'm sitting at home, and I get a call from Kevin Morrow and a couple other executives, and the opportunity to move to New York came up.
And you worked with Kevin at the House of Blues.
I did,
And
yes.
he had already moved to New York and was running the New York
No,
show.
Kevin, at that point, Kevin had transitioned out of the talent realm and was in charge of the club and theater touring for Live Nation nationally, for all the club and theater venues. At that point, he had been offered the opportunity to come to New York as the president of Live Nation New York. And he was given the ability to pick his staff. And at that point, he picked myself and Jason Miller to come out here.
And you're both still there, and Kevin's gone on to
Kevin's
some
back
other,
in LA, and
other
Jason and I are
adventures.
still here. Yeah.
So that's kind of the building and the saga of what is the entity known as Live Nation and the New York part. So your specific responsibilities as of now are national stuff.
Right. Locally, I oversee the club and theater division. So I'm responsible for the business unit of clubs and theaters, which, to describe what that is it's basically 3,000 capacity and under. So the portfolio that we oversee here and out of my office would be owned and operated venues of Irving Plaza and Gramercy Theater in the city. It's also the Westbury Theater out on Long Island. We're the exclusive booker for the Paramount Theater on Long Island as well.
But now, some of those venues are owned by Live Nation, and others are, you just have an
The
arrangement.
exclusive promoter in, yes. In New Jersey, we're the exclusive promoter at the Wellmont. This is strictly my division. We also oversee all the bookings of all the Asbury Park properties as far as the Wonder Bar, the Stone Pony Summer Stage, the Paramount Theater, Convention Hall.
Anything that's worthwhile in
Anything
Asbury.
that we have fun, yes. It's a lot of work, but it's really good. Then on the amphitheater and arena division, we supply most of the content for the arenas across the area, between Madison Square Garden, Barclays, Prudential, any of those. We supply a majority of the concerts for those. We also own and operate PNC Bank Arts Center in Homedale. We have the brand new, it's a year old, but it's amazing Coney Island Amphitheater, Ford Amphitheater at Coney Island.
That is an amazing facility.
I mean, that's a pretty fantastic build out, I gotta tell you.
If you ever get a chance, check out the Coney Island facility. It's a bit of a haul to get out there, but it's a pretty incredible facility.
Yep. And Jones Beach as well.
Now, these are exclusive.
Correct.
But on the other hand, there's two other players of consequence in the market. The New York market is AEG, which is a national outlet.
Right.
And then there's Madison Square Garden, which is kind of national, the East Coast, West Coast. Now, they control the Beacon, yet Live Nation does shows at their, you said they do Madison Square Garden.
Right.
So I assume they do Beacon. So it's, well, it's not exclusive, it's,
Correct. We just supply the most amount of content for Madison Square Garden Entertainment in New York City. Owns and operates the Garden Theater at the Garden, Radio City Music Hall, and the Beacon Theater, and we supply a majority of the concerts and events that happen in those places. We do not have an exclusive with them. They're open buildings, but they're amazing partners to work with.
are the venues that you guys own or control, like Irving Plaza or Gramercy, for example, can anyone book in there, or it's exclusive and they have to go through you?
It's exclusive to us. We do 100% of the booking.
Okay. So we're entering a very busy season as the summer with, interesting how the festivals have grown as a business in America. It seemed to be something that was much more popular and established in Europe.
Yeah.
And it only seems in recent times, however you want to put the word recent in there, where they've become a big deal stateside.
Well, I mean, I want to take a step back and just kind of comment on something you said. You said we're about to enter a busy time. And it's funny.
Outdoor busy.
Outdoor busy. Yeah, the concert business is busy year-round. That's an important thing right there, is that people never stop going to shows. I think the visibility of the outdoor shows,
Right.
that's when, like, I think everybody gets this opinion of we're about to enter the busy season because it's the summertime. Only because in the summertime out here, you have more venues that are open. Right.
On
So
the
it's
West
like,
Coast, I guess, where you were, it was,
yeah, I mean, out here, your season normally is, just before Memorial Day to Labor Day, right? Maybe a little bit past. On the West Coast, your outdoor season most amphitheaters would start with an Easter service in March and run. It wouldn't be absurd to hear of concerts happening outdoors all the way up until November. So it's different, but out here, it's kind of a shifting, if you will. The indoor shows slow down during the summer,
right.
and in the wintertime, there is no outdoor shows. So it's really a busy season, 365 days a year.
So I got this email about the Live Nation celebrating the beginning of the summer concert season, so that's probably where I got confused from. And they created an event this past Monday at one of the venues you talked about, at Irving Plaza, called National Concert Day. And as part of that process, they're launching a sale with about 1 million tickets to a lot of these different concerts for $20. $20. You saw that. And? You thought it was amazing. It is. So, is that a lost leader to attract attention and say, look at all this great stuff we have, or?
If it wasn't a planned situation, it would be a loss leader. But when you go into a deal, actually, National Concert Day isn't something that just pops up 30 days out. And you're like,
No.
oh, let's do National Concert Day. And then let's quick throw it together. Somebody go and try and get us 1,000 tickets here and 1,000 tickets there. It's planned for. And, the amphitheater season, let me put it this way. I put the holds down for National Concert Day at the venue to block the venue out in October.
So this has been in the works.
Right. So it's like we plan and we prepare for it. The amphitheaters take months to get the shows booked. So practically as soon as one season's ending, you're already sending out offers for the next year. And just so knowing this event is coming around, when you're putting your deals together, you're planning for it. So is it a loss leader? No. If it was an afterthought, yes. But planning for it, you're always going to have, when you're talking about trying to sell 13,000 to 20,000 tickets, you're always going, a lot of shows have that room to be able to have a discounted ticket in, or to have, if it's just a matter of filling the back corners or getting that last extra 500 people onto the lawn. If you prepare for it in advance in your deal, I mean, that's how that comes about.
So it's a lot of times it's built into the, well, always built into the deal before you
Correct.
do it. So any of these artists that are listed have been made aware and have signed off on this, obviously.
Yes, nothing is done without the artist knowing about it. In fact, you saw from some of the artists that performed there last night, they get excited about it because it's great exposure
Right.
that happens. I mean,
Gets people talking like him.
exactly. I mean, it's one concert in a 1,000 capacity venue with, some major artists performing on it, but the media exposure that it gets out of social media, out of the TV shows that are there, or out of radio stations that are broadcasting from there, all the upfronts that they have with the artists, it basically, well, that's what it is. It's a launch for the summer season. It's really Live Nation's way of being able to get the word out there about summer season's upon us. I mean, the weather's finally turning. We're not shoveling snow, even though luckily we haven't had to shovel a whole lot of it the last couple of years, but summer's coming. Why not take advantage of this short time where you can get a $20 ticket? Whereas that $20 ticket might be $35, might be $45, might be $50 in a week. But if you've got the ability to plan for it, and maybe you have the ability at a $20 ticket to go out and experience more than one show.
So do they still attach the additional fees to the $20, or is it $20 flat? I mean, that might be a question you might not know.
I don't know, but I believe these were $20 all-in tickets.
Cool. So I encourage you guys to go look at the Live Nation website, because it's a pretty amazing array of talent. Just rattle some names off: Boston with Joan Jett, The Dead and Company, Deep Purple, Depeche Mode, Earth, Wind and Fire, Goo Goo Dolls, Hank Williams with Lynyrd Skynyrd, Lionel Richie with Mariah Carey, Train with OAR, Styx and REO, Sublime, The Offspring, John Mayer, Korn with Stone Sour, country fans like Lady Antebellum with Kelsey Ballerini, a lot of country concerts, Florida Georgia Line, with an interesting array. It's always worked in the past for them with Nelly and Chris Lane, Cheap Trick, Foreigner, and Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff, and for $20, can't you?
That's the whole point of it. It's a very limited time. It's a limited number of tickets, and
So it's not $20 every seat in the house. This is like set aside a portion.
correct. Yeah.
So, in my job over at Sirius, we had an A-level artist come in last week, and I noticed that we just announced the tour. So I went on Groupon. They had tickets on sale already on Groupon for a tour that was just announced. And I asked the manager, I said, hey, why was tickets on Groupon? And he said, hey, I want to sell some tickets. So I guess the stigma of going to Groupon is no more.
Well, you bring up Groupon, and it's a pretty Groupon is a great thing, and it's really, you got to look at what Groupon is, how it works, and who
You guys are all familiar with Groupon, right?
right?
Okay.
And who Groupon attracts, and their database that they have. Well, arguably the Ticketmaster database is stronger than almost anybody else's. I mean, probably maybe second to Amazon. I mean, I think if you look at the engagements, it's what, Amazon, Zappos, and Live Nation / Ticketmaster. So, but when it comes to Groupon, when Groupon first started, everybody looked at that as, this is the clearinghouse. I've got my last, this show sucks, and I'm not selling tickets. So I'm going to put tickets on Groupon 2 weeks out
Right.
to try and get bodies into the room. Okay, and I think that's why the music business got this really stiff and terrible stigma about Groupon. Because one thing that's unique about Groupon is it's very targeted. And people look at that email every time it comes in, and they want to see what the next deal is. They want to see what it is. It's got a different level of mental engagement to it. So when you ask about the tour just going on sale with Groupon, I never run Groupon in the last 30 to 60 days of my shows. And because I use Groupon at the on sale as a marketing tool. These people are going to get the Live Nation email blast, or they're going to get the Ticketmaster email blast. But what if your casual music fan hasn't bought a concert ticket in the last year or two, and they're not in our database, right?
Right.
They're not going to find out about that. Maybe they will hear it on the radio. Maybe they'll find about it in print, but we all know print is minimal at this point, if it's even existent in half the markets anymore. But Groupon reaches a different segment of the population.
So it's another media you guys use.
Yeah, it's an advertising tool. It's a great advertising tool.
I noticed the new advertising tool, at least from my perspective, that you've been using is the All News radio station here, WINS, here in New York.
We've been using that for a long time.
Well, I just, shame on me, I just noticed, and I was like, wow. So that's pretty smart, because that's hitting a whole other audience that normally, that's not an active concert going audience per se, but maybe it is now. So
I remember doing a show, this is years ago, but I remember doing a show and trying to figure out what, the manager was insistent on buying television. And television is one hell of an expensive medium to buy on. It's probably the most expensive medium to buy on. And I remember this manager saying, insisting that the marketing plan have X amount of dollars and TV be focused onto it. And I'm sitting down having a couple of drinks with my friend who is in charge of marketing at the time. I'm not gonna say names about shows or whatever, and we really stripped down who is this artist and who are the fans. Not who does the company think the fan is, who does the record label think the fan is. Me and my friend, just sitting there having a drink, who's going to that show? And we thought about it, and we really stripped it down, and we were like, oh, it's guys. It's guys with disposable income. It's guys who kind of like to go out there and have a little bit of fun. So what's one way to get to them? We put together a campaign to where we bought television, and not on the major networks, not on the major shows, but we actually targeted after we thought about who this fan base was. And we bought television on the World Series of Poker, and on the Bass Pro Shops had a fishing show at the time, and another alternative sports related event that was happening. The manager lost his mind. At first, the agency was like, no, what a waste of money. And then 2 hours later, the manager fires back with, these guys get my artist. It was like a revelation to him. And so I've actually pulled that trick out of my hat every once in a while when really stripping it down is just actually, okay, let's step away. Let's go get a drink, let's go get coffee, let's this, and it's like, who is this fan? And that's the most important part when it comes to figuring out who you're really going after. I don't think I answered your question, but I just gave a decent story.
it is a good story, so I appreciate it. So now, I referenced earlier festivals.
Yes.
So let's just take a look at this old clip from the CBS morning show. And yes, it is dated, but there's some truths to it, and I thought it might be just to indulge me for a few minutes. Anyway, slightly dated, but there's some powerful sentences and statements in there about the value of a festival as opposed to an individual concert. So I don't know what happened to that fellow with that.
Catalpa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that either.
I mean, anyway, so now there's quite a few festivals in New York, as there are everywhere around the country. And I guess a new niche, if that's the right word, started with, I guess it was Golden Voice last year, where we called it Old Cella. So they had Coachella, which I'm sure you're familiar with, but they decided to get some of the marquee old acts over a 3-day, 2 weekends, 3 days of ranging from Bob Dylan to Pink Floyd, to The Who, McCartney, Stones, I mean, everything but the kitchen sink, and charged decent prices and provided, I guess, a level of service that would appeal to a well-heeled executive. And I would imagine a lot of Wall Street types were buying up tickets and schmoozing clients. It seemed like a good idea, and seemed to go okay. Made some money, sold out, at least on the surface. And everybody was wondering, okay, that was last year, what are they going to do this year? And if you went down the list of artists, heritage artists, if you will, it was really hard to come up with, something that was that way. But the wheels are turning at the folks with Live Nation and one of their bigger management clients, Mr. Azoff, and they came up with Classic East
Yep.
and Classic West. Classic East, I believe, is the last weekend in July, I think.
Correct.
And
I got to double check the dates, but yeah.
yeah, and so it's 2 days, concerts on the East Coast in New York, and then the same concert, I guess 2 weeks later, is in the Los Angeles area with the same talent lineup. Let's see if I recall correctly. I know it's Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles, and then it's Steely Dan, and Journey, and Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yep.
And it's over 2 days, so it's not crazy, because what, you're seeing three acts, 4 acts?
Well, look, what's different about the Classic, and one thing that I think is pretty cool about it.
This is your toy too, right?
No, it's Live Nation's event. I'm not involved in this one.
Okay.
My office is. Jason Miller, the president of my office, that's his show. But one thing that's different about the Classic than about the other event that happened in Indio is that there's 3 artists a day, and they're all playing full sets. So it's not like your typical festival experience where you're going in and you're seeing an artist, it spreads out from the beginning of the day. The only one you're going to see a full set on is the guy who plays last. Whereas this, you're getting 3 artists playing a full set each. It's not a 45-minute set, you're doing your full 75, 90 minutes.
And you're buying tickets for both days.
Correct.
And if I remember, it's considering reasonable compared to some of the other stuff going around.
I think it's definitely reasonable at less than $200 for the 2-day pass. And look, when you break it down, you're talking, less than, or it's not even that much. It's $150. You're talking $25 a band.
Which if you went to see one of those acts
Where
at
else
the
are you going to be
Garden,
able to see Steely Dan or the Eagles or Fleetwood Mac for $25?
you're not.
Like if it was shortened sets, I could see where the value might not be there, but they're performing a full set. Everybody's doing what they would if they were headlining the Garden or they were headlining the Beacon or wherever. They're playing that full set. So to see the artist for the value of $25 an artist, that's amazing.
And it's not, as they referenced, like Muddy Fields. It's Citi Field. So
Right.
it's a well-established stadium. So there's bathroom facilities that are handled like crowd and food.
Look, the food is amazing. There's parking. Like you said, there's the restroom conveniences. There's so many great things that go into, having the event at Citi Field. But, kind of going back and watching that piece and, just kind of what we started to talk about, it makes me think about one thing. And when you want to wonder why is there so many more festivals now than there was last year? Every year there's a new festival, at least one, if not 2 or 4. But why is that? There's a lot of, the artists will have their own reasons for it, but I think if you drill it down to the individual, and you say, why are you putting these bands together instead of doing 3 nights in an arena or 3 nights in an amphitheater? Or why are you taking 25 bands that could be playing Irving, Gramercy, Bowery Ballroom, PlayStation Theater, the Beacon, Radio City, Madison Square Garden, all that stuff on the same night? There's 2 different things people are looking for. When you go to an amphitheater, you go to an arena, you're really there to celebrate and focus on that one main headlining artist. There's a great undercard, but you're really there to focus on that. And I think what makes the festival scene so attractive is it's a longer day, which maybe that's attractive, maybe it's not, but it's really the experience is equal to the music as well. Because people want to go and have the entire full experience. And what you're seeing with the festivals that are successful is the experience that the people are getting. And some of these festivals aren't cheap. And so it's about what comes with it. If you're spending 200, 300, 400 bucks for a ticket, right? You're probably the type of person who wants better than a hot dog on a stick. You know what I mean? You want a better food choice to go with it. You want to have VIP elements that aren't just, okay, here's a riser over here you can stand on. What is that, if you're willing to pay for it, what does it really get you? And it's more about the comfort. It's more about everything that goes into the festival environment. It's about the grounds. It's about how it looks. It's about everything that you're experiencing at the time that you're experiencing the music as well. So I think that's why the festival scene has grown so much is people are recognizing that there's one experience when you're in a dedicated venue or looking at a dedicated concert for an artist headlining versus a festival where it's an all-day event. And it's a different experience.
But Sean, what I find interesting about the classic, it's not like Lollapalooza. It's very specifically targeted to a demo. I mean, those bands appeal to a certain demo. I'm going to say there's people who are baby boomers who will find it a great value, comforting to be at Citi Field because maybe they've gone there for ball games. So it's very specific to an audience that might not want to go to the Garden to see Fleetwood Mac, but for a couple $100 they can go see all these other things as you experience.
Well, but it's also maybe, yes, it is targeted, but at the same time, you look at Fleetwood Mac, you look at the Eagles, you look at Steely Dan, you look at all
Doobie Brothers.
the Doobie Brothers, you look at all those artists, they're still in the top 50 of what there is left of album sales every single year. So I'll tell you what, if you're saying that it's just people over 50 years old are into that music, they wouldn't continue to sell. Obviously, there's a younger generation discovering them. There's people of all ages who are, because of their parents or because of a soundtrack or whatever, they hear this song that turns them on to this artist that's been around for 30 years and they really recognize how fantastic that artist is. And so that's why you have the sales. So to say it's really targeted, I would say it's targeted at a style of music or at a type of music that goes together more than it's targeted at a specific age group.
But it's an atypical audience in most cases, I would think, that normally is not a festival-going crowd.
Correct. And that's why the classic is so different, because each of those artists are going to lend themselves to each other's fan base. It's going to be a cross-reference, and being at Citi Field, you're going to have the comfort that those people are going to want to go to. Right. That you could not pick the classic up and drop it in a field in the middle of somewhere.
No.
That experience isn't there, and nobody would want to go. So it's a matter of mirroring the right lineup with the right venue to place it in.
So from your seat, what will be some of the more successful financially, attendance-wise festivals this season?
Well, the classic's going to be amazing.
Right.
I'm sorry, I have to say it. Look, Lollapalooza is always great. I think the experience at Lollapalooza is absolutely stunning. From the regular person who purchases the cheapest ticket that they can, all the way up to the ultra VIP that pays the top price for that. Bonnaroo, I think, is another absolutely great festival. Coachella is going to be successful every year because it's created a brand based upon an experience. Look, when you have a festival that sells out without even announcing the lineup,
Right.
it's no longer about the music in that instance, whereas so many of the other festivals are music driven. And yes, people do care about what artists are playing on Coachella, and they just expect that it's going to be something great. But the Coachella tickets sell out before there's even one artist announced. So from a financial standpoint, sure, that one's going to be fantastic.
Anything you're excited about that you're personally helped put together or involved with on a national level?
I'm doing a lot of tours in the club and theater size
Got it.
realm. Okay, it's obvious to look at me. You can say what kind of music I enjoy, but people really wouldn't guess how just wide and varied my musical background is. And when people sit there and ask, "What was your first concert?" When I tell them what mine was, they kind of flip out and can't believe it. They always expect it's probably going to be like a this or a that. But my first concert was 1981. I was 11 years old, and my aunt took me. My first concert was Bauhaus at the Roxy in LA. The first time they came to the U.S.
Wow.
So
Wow.
so my background is all over the place. But right now, I've helped put out national tours with Social Distortion, Pennywise, The Cult. There's so many bands that I've built up this relationship over 25 years with the members of the band, with the management team, that when they come about wanting to do something special, they come to me and we have this discussion about, okay, how do we really go out and do this right across states? So what am I excited about? Right now, I have The Damned out on the road. The very first band to release a single under this brand new genre in 1976 called punk rock. They were everybody throws back the Pistols or the Clash, but The Damned put the first single out. And
Nobody knew what to make of them.
No. And they're out there on the road right now. And 3 years ago, sitting in Asbury Park after a show at the Stone Pony, a couple of the members pulled me aside and said, "You recognize our 40th anniversary is coming up. Like, let's put this together. How do we really celebrate this?" And it took 3 years of really planning, stripping it down about like what it is, putting them in the right room. So for the first time, they're out there going across all of the U.S., 37 dates across the U.S., a couple in Canada. It's the first time they've done a full coast-to-coast tour of the United States in over 20 years.
Wow.
As a headliner. And, working with them to set it up right.
You
really
guys are familiar with The Dam? Well, those of you who aren't, I would encourage you to go on YouTube and just look at a clip or something. It was just definitely the definitive, as he said, definitive roots of punk before anything else. And I remember I was working at Atlantic Records. They got a box of them. They were on Stiff, I think.
Yeah.
They had a box and they had this really sheen, glossy album cover. And I remember I used to walk around the halls at night and there was a box of Damned outside of one of our A&R guys' office. And he obviously passed or didn't care. And I was like, wow, look at this. Anyway, Atlantic passed on the Damned, I suppose.
They did. MCA picked them up at that point.
Yeah, and it was kind of the wrong label, but they still needed to find a home, and so there they were.
But you know what? They're 41 years they've been around and they're out there kicking. So that's got me really excited. Next week I'll be announcing a full U.S. and Canadian tour with an artist I'm really excited about too.
Who will the Dam play with? Will they have an opening act? What's an evening with? We celebrated the 40th anniversary. I don't know if you care to hear this or not, but we celebrated the 40th anniversary in a really unique way. It goes back to the 70s. They were banned from the Royal Albert Hall. Because at that point, the Queen was in charge of Royal Albert Hall, and she chose who got to play there and who didn't. And these punks with their hair and everything else, we don't want them anywhere near this grand palace. So they were banned. So to celebrate their 40th anniversary, the ban was lifted, and they got to play the Royal Albert Hall over in London. And I went over there, and it was fantastic. And they had That's a big deal.
It was huge. They had devised a set list that I've never heard of before, but what they basically did was, in reverse retrospective, they played every single they've ever released, from the most recent one last year all the way up to the very first one of New Rose. And that was pretty fascinating. And so when we talked about doing a 40th anniversary tour, which started in April of this year, just last month, brought them over in October and just did 2 shows in the States. One in New York, one in Los Angeles, and recreated that show. That's a 4-hour show. I'm sorry, but guys in their 50s and 60s playing 4 hours, that's a haul. But they did the same thing. Every single from the most recent all the way to the very first one that started punk. So that was a really unique way to do it. Is there support? Yes. They have two support acts, or one support act tonight. One did the East Coast, one does the West Coast. But besides that, they still play 90 minutes and change the set list up a little bit every night. Obviously, when you have that many records and that many years of songs, you can afford to change a few out, but you'll always hear the staples.
So other than the Damned, you're excited. This is an announcement we all should look forward to for next week.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go back to the festivals for a second.
Okay.
So how many of you are familiar with the Fyre Festival? Yeah? Okay, so enough of you. So not
Did anybody here buy a ticket? Was anybody supposed to go?
Okay.
Does anybody know anybody was supposed to go? That's what I'd be curious about.
So it's not a Live Nation concert, and Sean has nothing to do with it. But I asked him before, I said, would you mind talking about it? Because, I mean, it's in all the newspapers, it's everywhere, it's on television, it's in all the media as what a bungling effort it was, and the residual lawsuits and bands pulling out. I know my company, we were planning on possibly covering it, and we had some people down there, and they realized very quickly it was something that they wanted to distance themselves from. So I mean, like, you weren't there, and you have no connection, but as an observer and a professional, I wondered if you could comment on how is it possible that they screwed this up so badly with lack of facilities? The bands were backing out left and right. I mean, is it just like incompetence and lack of money? You'd guess.
Look, I have no knowledge of the inner workings of that festival. I have no knowledge of what actually happened that led to the demise or the situation that everybody found themselves in on that. I do know managers of a lot of the bands that were supposed to play. I do know members of quite a few of the bands that were supposed to play. And I know that they wouldn't lend themselves or lend their name attached to anything that didn't seem like from the outside that it was going to be correct. But, if I had to guess, there's a reason why, and I'm not saying this for any other, I'm not propping up my company, but I will say this. There's a reason why Live Nation is the world's largest concert promoter. And there's a reason why people come to do business with us, because of a level of professionalism, because of ensuring that things are done the proper way and making sure that things are done correctly. Credibility and your history, your reputation. The thing with Fyre, I think you have to look at it is who was in charge of it? Who was in charge of the site? Who was in charge of making sure the site was built? Who was in charge of you look at it as an alarm system. Everything that failed along the way, whether it be transportation, whether it be artist deposits, whether it be the build out of the site or the catering. I don't know if anybody saw that awesome picture of the cheese sandwich and the styrofoam. If I paid thousands of dollars to go to a remote island with celebrity chefs, and that's what I was given, I think I'd freak out pretty good too. But it starts with the right team, and I don't know who their team was, but I would say probably the downfall is whoever their team that they chose to do it with probably didn't understand exactly what they were getting themselves into and how to do everything the proper way to ensure a successful event.
But how do you not have
Look, a millionaire's got millions of dollars and can throw any amount of money at a band. And
Right.
for a certain amount of money, that band is going to play.
Sure, they can play
And
a bar
if you-
mitzvah or a wedding too.
Exactly. And anybody can spend 6 hours and put together the world's greatest PDF and claim that they're going to have the greatest event. It's a matter of follow through. What happens between that PDF and your presentation and actually day of show on the site are two totally different things. So it's a matter of the execution, and I think that's where it fell short, the execution.
And the promises that were made were so amazing, and yet
That's why they sold
there's
tickets.
and there was no execution.
Right. I really don't know what else to comment to.
No, I know.
Not knowing the in-depth of what happened, but that it can simply be boiled down to that. Whatever the plans were not executed. And that's the biggest problem you have. And, you see it with independent promoters, you see it with startup festivals every year. There's 100 festivals that start up every year that never make it to a second year.
But they do have a first year?
Yeah, sometimes it's financial reasons, sometimes festivals are a great financial success when you bake in ticket sales, sponsorship, and all the other ancillary revenue, but what was the experience? To get a festival right, it's a very delicate line between fiscal profitability and the fan profitability, to boil it down to that. For an event to be successful and go to a year two is a bigger hurdle, I think, than year one.
So if someone has an idea for a festival, and it's baked through and they have a business plan, they come to you guys, say, what do you think? What's the process then? I mean, would you guys take some novice off the street who comes in with a great PowerPoint and says, I want to do this, I can do this, would you guys be interested in partnering with me? Does that happen? I guess if they're a manager of a credible band.
Right. I mean, it depends on the background. I don't want to say it depends on the background of the person that's coming to you, but let me put it this way: a great idea is a great idea, and it doesn't matter who came up with it. If somebody comes to us with a great idea, we're going to explore it. If it's not a great idea, then we won't explore it.
All right, well, I like to position this class as participatory, not just you and I sitting up here talking to each other. So there's quite a few questions out from the students, and I just want to go through a couple here, just got a few more. And I'll start off with a question from Zachariah, is that correct? Yeah. So I want to know how does a DIY artist get the attention of Live Nation to possibly get on a tour or a show for bigger artists and venues that are yours?
Wow. Okay. Well, a DIY artist, how do they get the attention of Live? Let me just strip that back down. So how do you get the attention of Live Nation, right? To get on, are you looking to get on an individual shows or a tour? Because here's the most important thing that I think a starting out or a newer artist is lacking right now. You need that fan base at home first. Everybody thinks that the best way to get new fans is to go on the road. Well, I'll tell you what, the first of 5 never has more than 30 people watching them. So that is less important. What's more important is building your fan base at home. So how do you get my attention? How do you get our attention? Start the groundswell. Get people talking about you locally. Make friends with other artists. If you are a good or a decent artist and the music you're making is good, you're gonna attract other artists to you. So hone your craft. Befriend another artist, and artists talk to us. Some of the best bookings I've gotten over the years in the past, when I was really dealing in the startup of the clubs, was, would be an artist telling me, hey, did you hear about this guy? Hey, did you hear about that guy? I go back to Andrew McMahon, who was the lead singer of Something Corporate and is now Andrew McMahon Into the Wilderness. He's selling anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000 tickets a day right now. I've known him since I met him at a high school Battle of the Bands contest. That's where I was at the Coach House, and I was at the high school Battle of the Bands for San Clemente High School.
Wow.
And that's where I saw him.
Wow.
I've been friends with him ever since. But, I'll never forget him telling me about, hey, have you heard about this guy, Max from Say Anything, who was just starting out. He introduced me to Max, and I haven't done a lot of work with him since. But I'll tell you what, getting that word from him, when they came around 3 months later to tour, and the agent said, hey, I've got this band coming through. It's like, all right, there's credibility to them. So that would be an important thing that I would say.
Thank you. Okay. So Christina Roof. So, you work at Cumulus or intern there?
I didn't have
No, but where'd you get Cumulus letterhead?
I work for them.
You work for them?
Wow.
Interesting, okay. So she had a question here. What happens when an artist doesn't sell enough tickets for a larger venue such as Madison Square Garden?
Wow, that's a broad question that is very specific at the same time. It depends. Either production is cut down, certain sections of the arena are closed down, certain sections of the venue are closed down. Depending on the situation, maybe the guarantee needs to be renegotiated. There's a million things that can happen when an artist, maybe the show cancels. Maybe it's just not the right play. And that's the toughest decision, conversation, or thought to be had between the artist and the promoter is like, what is the right move here? You know, do we discount it and get bodies in the room just to see the artist? But then at that point, you know, who shares the brunt of the expenses? So that discussion has to be had as well. So I mean, there's so many things that can happen. You know, maybe the writer gets cut back. Maybe, you know, staging gets cut down. There's a million different, if you have better detail.
Are there like certain techniques to maybe trying to sell those tickets before coming down to either canceling a show or closing down certain sections? Like maybe there's ways you guys have to sell these tickets for cheaper prices or something?
Look, there's always discount. You can always discount a ticket to try and encourage people to go. But if you're taking $20 off of a ticket, you know, a deal is based upon, you know, most people look at the ticket price and go, damn, Live Nation, how could you charge so much for my ticket, right? For everybody who's in here, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir when I say this, but does everybody in here understand how a concert ticket gets priced for the most part?
No, I'm sure they don't. So why don't we
Okay.
talk about that?
Well,
Let's
I mean,
assume-
look,
let's assume not.
There's an artist guarantee. The artist expects to make so much money off of a show. And then there's the expenses of actually producing that show. So, you know, an artist is going to make X amount of dollars. It's going to cost you this much to actually produce that event and market that event. And then then your business model is I have this giant expense line and I think I'm going to sell X number of tickets. Now, how do I cover this wide spread of expenses? How do I cover that over 8,000 tickets? And that's how you come up with a good baseline of what your ticket prices are going to be. You know, my whole house has to be $85. All 8,000 tickets need to be $85. So I can either charge $85 across the board and hope that I'm going to sell all 8,000 tickets, or I can do a high P1 because I know that certain fans are going to want to sit in the first 5 rows. So I can charge $150 for that, which also enables me to have a $45 ticket in the back. So that's how ticket prices get set. So if you're on sale with a show and it's not selling, and you're talking about, okay, well, I want to take this $65 ticket and drop it to $20, you've just completely thrown the mathematics of that deal off. So then what do you do to subsidize that loss in revenue? So on the arena level, it's much more difficult because you just took a big whack of money out of your ability to pay your bills. Now, in a club where if you own it and you operate it, you got your food and beverage sales. So maybe it makes sense if the artist is willing to give a little on their guarantee, and you know it's more about getting exposure for this artist. Maybe you can take that loss on your tickets. You can take that loss in order for the ancillary revenues of food and beverage or whatever else it may be. But the artist will still make more people in the room means more merchandise is going to get sold, so the artist is going to make money that way. More people in the room means more food and beverage is going to be sold, so the promoter can make up some money that way. So to just automatically throw a discount out, it's not as simple as just saying, we're not selling very well, I need to drop this ticket price. So
What about some of the other ancillary fees? Okay, so you mentioned food and beverage. merch? Like you're selling your T-shirts,
The artist, that's how the art, that's another way.
but the
which
promoter
there's
and the venue do get a taste of that
Some
sometimes.
venues do, some venues don't. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
And then, I haven't bought a ticket.
But look,
in a
there's
while.
also an inherent cost that goes into merchandise sales. And I'm not gonna sit here and I'm not gonna claim that a 70-30 split on a t-shirt is fair versus an 85-15 versus a 90-10.
Are those ballpark figures that are used?
I'm just throwing out different
Oh,
ones. I mean, I've
okay.
seen it as bad as 60-40, but there is an inherent cost that goes into the sales of the merchandise.
Sure.
You know, I mean, there is a specific area that has to be set up. There is staffing that has to occur. There is, you know, you have to pay those people to be there. You have payroll taxes in certain states, certain cities, certain all that. But there is physical labor and effort that's being taken to sell those sales. And you also need to, you know, make sure you have the right people so they're not stealing from you. They're not giving out T-shirts. So there is an inherent cost of running that business of merchandise.
Sure.
So I won't debate what I feel is the fair split.
But there is a split, obviously.
For most part, yes.
So I know there's costs that consumer doesn't think about. Insurance. It's a huge line item. In most of these venues, it's a union facility, so you have built-in numbers that you really don't have much control over.
For the most part, correct. I mean, yes, in the sense of the tour is going to be what the tour is going to be. When that artist goes out, they're going to have their idea of what their stage is, what their production elements they're going to have, if they're going to have video, if they're going to have all of that. What's never thought about is, okay, what's it going to cost me to do this show in Madison Square Garden?
Versus-
What's it going to cost me to do this show in this venue? What's it going to cost me to do that show in this venue? And you know what? That's cool because that's the artist coming up with their concept and their thought of the way they want to present their show. How do we want to present our music, right? So that's where they come up with that. And then the difficult part is being the promoter. It's like, okay, I'm going to work with this artist and I'm going to do this artist in this room. Well, it's a union facility and the union automatically has their collective bargaining agreement with that venue. And it states this many people for this many trucks, this many hours, this meal penalty, blah, 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 every expense that goes into that. So, and then you have venue rents, you have everything else that goes into that, which like you're saying really is a variable, but it's a non-controllable variable.
Right.
Like between stagehand, security, ushers, there is so many costs that goes on to actually putting on a concert that I think you're right, the general consumer doesn't know. And that's why I say when I gave the explanation of a ticket, what makes a ticket price is that the spread is massive, artist and expense.
But the ticket price sometimes, there's an add-on. I think it's called a venue fee,
Oh, a facility surcharge?
facility surcharge. So
Facility fee, facility maintenance fee, yes. Has a million names.
what does that mean?
What does a facility maintenance fee mean? That means that if you would like to come back to the venue again and you would like the toilet to be fixed from the kid who decided to kick it and break it, or the guy who got drunk and decided to punch that mirror and break it, or the natural wear and tear of a venue, that goes towards the upkeep of that facility.
Is that a variable number, you think, from show to show? Or-
No, I think it's variable from venue to venue.
So the venue has a set,
Correct.
okay. So those are some of the costs involved in putting on a show and, yes, sir.
Does the promoter have sort of a percentage of house where he's gonna break even when he's doing all these numbers, like 75% of the house and we'll cover our expenses and then,
No, it depends per deal. I mean, some artists, you know, it's an automatic sellout. It's
Yeah.
that's the fine art of the promoter is being able to, based on history, your experience, your knowledge of the artist, your knowledge of your team that's going to be able to help you promote it from marketing and such. Is it's It's really analyzing every single deal that you're doing as far as where is my break even going to be. You know, some shows, the artist will get 100% of the door because you know it's going to be that much of a sellout. The effort's going to be so much less. You know, one of the venues that I work with was questioning me today about why there was so much back end, why there was so much potential overage for the artist to earn on this show. And my comment was, the ticket price is correct for this artist. Your venue is the right play for this artist. The artist is only seeking a guarantee of this. So I I came up with this deal in the sense of structuring the tickets correctly that they would sell for the artist, recognizing what the expenses were, recognizing who the artist was, who its fan base was. And he had the hardest time understanding that not every deal has to be a sellout. So no, there's no set model for 85% and you're sold out, or 85% and your expenses are covered. Sometimes it's 95, sometimes it's 50%. Sometimes the artist really, 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 really wants to play that room. I've had it before, where if you're so insistent on playing this room, take a $0 guarantee. Take a 0 versus a percentage of net. Let me cover my expenses, which I'll get out of the way in the first 200 tickets, then you can have the door afterwards. If you're really insistent on playing that room, I personally don't think you are playing the right room. But if you are insisting on playing this, let's work collectively on the deal.
Here's a little career advice question. This is from Jess Frank, who has decided to hit the road, move to Nashville,
Nashville's a great place.
and look for a position, put an application in, want a position at Live Nation, but is looking for some advice or tips from you for someone who's trying to make their first big move in the business. And they're excited, but they're a little apprehensive and tiny bit scared.
Be confident. I don't know who asked that. Be confident.
Jess.
Is your first one. Jess? Be confident. Don't be cocky. Be confident. Recognize that you're going to have learning you're going to have to go through. And I would say, really the important thing, look, I just hired a couple of people myself. The important thing I look for is somebody who knows what they're getting themselves into. Don't apply, don't go apply for a position at Live Nation to be a talent buyer if you've never booked a show before. Don't apply to be a marketing person, don't apply for a marketing manager if you just graduated college. I mean, it's great to try for it, but have some solid skills backing you in whatever you're going to try to go into, especially if you're trying to go into a larger company. And don't fudge it. I mean, I hate to say it, everybody glorifies something or another on their resume, but don't bullshit your way through an interview and then find yourself stuck, because you'll find yourself out the door quicker. And everybody in this industry talks. Sorry if the comment is inappropriate, but everybody in this industry talks, and the quickest way to end your career in the industry is to get in under something that you're not. That would be my advice.
I want to amplify something he said. I was always told, and I was told this by an artist who's passed away, Steve, I always tell the truth. You know why I tell the truth? I don't have to keep my story straight. I thought about that. So there was a part-time position at my company recently, and we had a couple of candidates, offered the position to a graduating senior from another school. And our company has a policy, before we hire anybody, we do a background check. Person is graduating in a couple of weeks. HR calls me and says, can't hire that person. Why not? The background check didn't come through. Why? We don't know. That person will get a letter. I said, well, what possibly could it be? They bounced a check? No, credit check doesn't count. It's two things. Either it's criminal activity or they lied. Did they lie on their resume? Did they lie about a position they had? I don't know, and I won't know. But it's what he said, you're not overreaching, and at the same time, you always tell the truth. Because it's going to catch up with you. So, I don't know. I grew up with Abraham Lincoln and George Washington. Dad, I chopped down the cherry tree, and Honest Abe. And just tell the truth. May not always be comfortable, but as he said to me, keep your story straight.
Yeah.
So, and I think that applies no matter where you go. If you guys are not going to be in the entertainment business and you want to go in some other area, I think that just applies across the board. So take that as a possible life lesson.
If I can add to that,
Of course you can.
look, I'm not a kid anymore, and one thing I've learned is that business, year after year after year, business accelerates faster and faster and faster. And I think in the past, you've always heard stories or seen a movie where somebody, faked their way into a job and were able to work their way up to the top. It's not going to happen anymore. Yeah, everything moves too fast. There's no time for putting up with it. And sooner rather than later, you are going to get caught in your lie, and you are going to be bounced out quicker than anything else. Unfortunately, in not just the music business, but in any sort of business that you're in, unfortunately, people are expendable. And if you're not good at your craft, if you're not honest, and if you don't create the reputation of productivity, you'll find yourself out. That's simple.
Dr. Marconi did point out one exception, and it's the exception, and there's exceptions to every rule, and this person didn't get caught, and they're a very, very, very successful mogul, retired, living very comfortably as a wealthy man, and they lied on their application and said because they graduated from a particular school, Harvard, and they were working at a talent agency and working in the mailroom. It's a very famous story, and so it goes, the legend, that the person intercepted the letter saying it wasn't actually accurate, steamed open the envelope, fixed it so it said that everything was okay, and the person got the job, and they've gone on. But that is very, very, very unique, and the story of a legend. So
It's a fantasy.
it's a fantasy. I wouldn't try following that fantasy line of thinking. So moving on to a totally different topic here from Natalia. Is it Natalia? Hi. So she wants to know how Tickets Now has improved business.
Wow. How Tickets Now, like the company Tickets Now? How has it improved business?
Maybe the business.
I really don't. It's just another outlet of selling tickets. I mean, I don't see that it's improved or made it more difficult. I'm sorry. I don't see that it's really. It's just another outlet for ticket sales.
So it hasn't improved business.
No,
It's just opened another venue.
Exactly.
That help with your question?
What was that?
Said,
Okay.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
Sorry. Nathaniel, hey, he wanted to know, has working smaller venues helped you gain a level of intimacy that you possibly can try to replicate with your larger audience? And is that an important image from a consumer standpoint?
100%. I mean, from my side of the business, I'll tell you this, and having made friends with artists that I've been friends with from the playing 100 capacity venue all the way up to playing arenas. I may have a friendship with them, but here's an important thing to think about. In the club level, the relationship between the artist and the promoter is very, very, very important. There has to be a trust and a confidence out there that you're both working together to grow to a certain level, to grow beyond that level that you're currently in. Once you've hit that arena or amphitheater or large venue of that size, you've pretty much established yourself in a certain level. And while there still might be a friendship, there isn't that intimacy or that that communication that there was before. People that I've watched grow up through the club circuit, and I would go backstage and talk to them every show and say hello and all of this stuff. There does get to a point in time where there's now 10 levels between me and that artist. And they might be playing the Garden or they might be playing an arena. I might not be able to get back to see them. I mean, as somebody who watched an artist play their very, very, very first show and then they're playing an amphitheater 15 years later, I've been kicked out of, like, you can't stand back here. You can't stand here. You can't be here. I get it. I respect it. That's the artist area. But, so, yeah, it's totally different from the club level all the way up. The club level is really important with the artist because of the building of their career. Now, with the fan, here's the thing, is that when you come to the arena size, your average concert goer is going to maybe 2 shows a year. When you're in the club realm, let's say 300 people to 1,000, 1,500 people size venues, your average person is going to 5 or 6, if not more, shows a year. So as the promoter, your relationship with the fan is very important also, because you want to create that intimacy, you want to create that comfort to be able to come back again. Whereas when you get to a much larger scale, you recognize you're probably only going to see this person once a year. Not saying that you want to discount the way they're treated, but that's why in New York City there's 3,000 clubs under 1,500 capacity and only 4 arenas.
Sir?
Yeah, could I follow up on that? Just because there are a number of sort of DIY artists here, and a lot of them deal with promoters who want to do pay to play. In the step below you, you talk about the anywhere from the 50 people to 300 people clubs. How can they deal with that? And how do they develop that level of trust with somebody who's telling you you have to sell 20 tickets to even play here?
Well, can I take the fact that I work for Live Nation completely off the table here with this answer? But let me say this. What is the whole thing of pre-sale tickets, selling tickets, pay to play, whatever you want to call it? If you're a new artist and you haven't created that groundswell, you haven't created the buzz about you, the draw, right? That's what everybody talks about, the draw. You haven't created that draw yet. Why should I, all the things I just said that are the expenses of running a venue, you may be absolutely great, but why should I have you play in my venue if you can't even bring 20 people? 99% of the times, those consignment tickets, those pre-sale tickets, are cheaper than if you went to the box office and bought it. So the artist is already being given the opportunity to sell something for below market value. And if they have any sort of a draw, I don't think they should look at it as a negative thing. Now, if you're talking about, I need you to sell consignment 500 tickets or else you can't play, I don't agree with that. Like, that doesn't make sense at all. But you bring up the 20 ticket rule. And I had somebody ask me that the other day too, or tell me that they were asked to sell 20 tickets and how pissed off they were, how offended they were about selling 20 tickets. And the reality is, okay, so you're an artist. You expect to get paid for your show. You want to be on a stage. You want to get your music out there to somebody, but there's an inherent cost that goes into producing the venue to have that ability for you to be up there on the stage and for you to be able to get your music out to people. So we've got the person running that venue, the promoter, whatever, has their costs that are associated with you being able to play your music. So if you can't even bring 20 people, maybe it's not time. Maybe you shouldn't be playing there. But 20 people is so small. I mean, any of us could pick up the phone and call family members and friends and say, hey, I'm going to play whatever bar. I've got tickets for $10. Will you come support me? That's the biggest thing is, with the invention of Kickstarter and GoFundMe and all these other things, you're seeing artists using this on a larger level to pay for the recording of their albums and stuff. That's humbling for an artist to get out there and say, support me. You're my fans, support me. if you're at the beginning of your career, some people think, I got my guitar, I write great songs, I this, but they're not humbled enough to be able to ask their friends and their family to support them. So that'd be my answer to that.
great. Good.
You do a lot of stuff every day. You have many, many tasks. You wear, aside from this hat, a lot of hats. So Zach wanted to know, what are some of the tasks that you handle in your job that the average person may not realize you do and that have to be done? Behind the scenes stuff.
Behind the scenes, I mean, look, it's everything from, I just talked about how a ticket price gets created. That's a real important part of my job, is it's not just about talking to the agents or talking to my marketing department or any of that. Like, I would say one of the most important things in my job is understanding how a concert ticket and how a concert actually works. I know that's a really vague answer. What are some of the things that I do that would be really important that people wouldn't know about? It's understanding the actual economics of a concert and taking the time to actually block out the correct way in which to present that show or not present the show. Probably, I'm going to go off topic here for a second, but one of the biggest mistakes in my business is everybody thinks that I'm a concert promoter. I got to book every show that comes my way. I got to book. Sometimes the best deals are the ones you don't make. If you're a smart, and I hate to say it, but being a promoter is also being a businessman. I don't hate to say that. I love to say that. I'm 47 and damn, I love being a businessman. I don't know any other business that I can be this old and have a mohawk and tattoos and have an 8-year-old daughter who tells me I have stupid hair. I love what I do and I love being a businessman, but you've got to be able to recognize sometimes when it's a bad deal and just say no. So many people in our business don't, but that's a real important thing that I think you guys should take in every part of your life, is sometimes just no is the most powerful word in the world. It's unbelievable, and recognizing when the right time to use it is super important. Okay, so back to, I know I'm taking a long time. I don't know if this is too long. But some of the things, so there's that coordination between all facets of a venue is really important that I don't think anybody understands. Okay, so I write an offer, I book a show. What happens to it after then? I mean, it's coordination with the box office. It's coordination with my marketing team. It's coordination with my accounting team to make sure that the bills are going to get paid. That's an important thing a lot of people don't seem to think about. One important thing that makes a promoter a good promoter that I have to do every single day is also recognize what's going on around me. That's what some people may not or think about when they think about a promoter and what's an important thing is understanding your market. Okay, well, if this metal band's playing here and this metal band's playing here, why the hell am I going to book it here? Know what your competition is. That's one of the things that I do that people probably wouldn't recognize, is I look at what my competition's doing every day. And I don't look at it to sit there and be pissed that I didn't get this show or I didn't get that show. It's just recognizing what is going on in my market. And then the second, the other thing to that would be, I'd be getting to know my market and recognizing what the trends are and to try and stay ahead of them. Okay, this section of town is growing. It's time to look at, there's no other competition. And you made the comment at the very beginning of our talk. Back in the 80s, Orange County, there wasn't much competition. Yeah, so it exploded. And then a House of Blues came in there. And then that House of Blues won Polestar Nightclub of the Year. It beat out the 930 Club for ticket sales in a year when that venue held the top selling ticket sales in the club realm for 12 years. But all of a sudden, this venue in a secondary market with half the capacity sells more tickets than the guy who's been on top for decades. I know Seth will cut me for saying this, but I got the most beautiful letter from him when that happened, but it just had 2 letters in it. But it just shows, knowing your market and staying ahead of the curve is a real important thing that I have to do every day.
He didn't try hiring you away.
What was that?
He didn't try hiring you away.
No.
Is it fair to ask you questions about international, or is that outside of your sphere of knowledge?
I don't know a whole lot about
Okay,
it.
so
I
I'll-
travel internationally to go visit friends, but that's about it.
Okay, so JJ wanted to ask you if live concerts are still the top revenue stream for artists. Which is true. Do you think the rise of virtual reality will have an impact?
I think the rise of virtual reality is going to have a definite impact. But, I wish your brother were here right now. Talk about if touring is it. Yeah, because here's the reality. Touring is the only way an artist is making money now. Touring and endorsement deals. That's it. They're not making money off the records that are being made. They're not making money. Back in the 70s, you toured to
Get a record deal.
you toured to get a record deal, and then you made your money off the records, and you played less shows than you play now, but they were big shows, and it was a promotional tool. The record was, the concert was kind of like the cream on the top. Nowadays, you have to tour to even promote the record.
Right.
There is no setup on records anymore.
Sometimes the record is an excuse just to tour.
Exactly. I'm going to put a greatest hits out just so I can go out on the road one more time
That's it.
and fulfill my deal.
Tatiana Williams? Well, okay. Good question anyway. She said Twitter has recently announced a new collaboration deal with Live Nation about having exclusive Live Nation content on its social media site. Can you talk a little bit about that, if you know anything about that?
I can't talk anything to that deal, but what I can say is content is king. And as the world has progressed and as social media has progressed and the way in which we receive information and the way in which we're touched every day, it's all moving to the digital space. I started out our talk earlier today with saying print is pretty much dead, and it is pretty much dead. I doubt anybody in here reads the newspaper every day, but I know you look at your phones every day. You look at what's on Instagram, you look at what's in your Facebook feed, even that I think is waning slightly, but it's still a massive, marketing tool for us, and it only makes sense. And the thing is that every different social media app, every different social media stream reaches a different type of person. So it makes perfect sense to do a deal with Twitter just as it makes perfect sense to deal with Facebook or with Instagram or with any of that. Because I doubt anybody in here just has one of those on your phone. I bet you've got all three, if not, and then probably a couple of others that I've probably heard of and some I probably haven't heard of. But the fact is, everybody gets their content in a different way. So to have specific, exclusive content on a specific app is a great thing because you're targeting that person. So I hope that wasn't too broad of an answer, but that's how it is.
Okay, Kevin, I can't pronounce it, Juba. So, interesting question. It seems like a couple of years ago, ticket scalping was a big issue in the live industry. Is it still as big an issue? And what, if anything, has Live Nation done to try and stop or limit ticket scalping?
Ticket scalping, it's happened since day one, since a hard ticket was sold. It's still a problem, and it's something that's never going to go away. I'd say the biggest problem with there's two sides to this story here. There's the financial impact of how high a ticket gets priced for, right? Certain cities, certain states, certain municipalities have different laws. I remember there was a time back when I was a kid in California that you could stand outside of a venue and sell a ticket. This is before I was a promoter. You could stand outside and resell your ticket. But once you went $10 over the face value, you could get arrested under a scalping law in the city of Santa Ana, California. I don't know what municipalities have that anymore, but there were certain rules at that point. And with the invention of the internet and everything else, it's just gone hog wild and people can charge whatever the hell they want. But it's all a matter of supply and demand when it comes to the ticket price, if you think about it. Because you may think, Jesus, I can't believe, if I bought this ticket when it went on sale, it was $30, and now somebody wants to charge me $150 for it. You didn't act in time. You didn't purchase the ticket, and now it's supply and demand. Do you really want to go see that show? Is it worth $150 to you now? Look, you want to kill the scalpers? Stop buying the tickets. Buy your tickets earlier and be willing to miss out on the experience. That's the way to stop the scalpers. The other problem with scalping and with ticketing agencies and everything else that goes into that is my major issue that I have with it, is just how bad fake tickets have gotten. I can't tell you how many shows I'm at that are great shows and people are getting burnt because the barcode doesn't scan, or because this ticket, oh, look at that, the number fudged off. I mean, there's Ticketmaster has, has this thing called the Platinum Program, which basically takes tickets once ticket sales get low, and it takes a certain amount of tickets and it puts it on a variable pricing. And that variable pricing is based upon what is the secondary market. The artists have to agree to it, the management has to agree to it, the venue has to agree to it. Everybody has to agree that this small amount of tickets is going to go for variable pricing. And it's, like I said, supply and demand. But the thing is that if you waited to the last minute and you're now paying that $100 for that $30 ticket, that sucks. And I'm sorry, you should have bought your ticket earlier. But the thing is that Ticketmaster, for whatever you want to say about it, has built a brand built on reputation. And that is that if you buy a ticket from a reputable ticket company, you know that ticket's going to work, you know you're going to get in, and you're not going to get to the box office, and you're not going to get turned away. 99% of the times when I'm at a show and somebody comes up and they can't get in because they didn't scan or something was wrong with the ticket, they bought it on Craigslist, they bought it off of Facebook, somebody's whatever, township garage sale. I have 2 tickets to this show, who wants to buy them? That's where most of the problems come in at. So when it comes to scalpers, look, I hate it. I think it's disgusting, but it's a supply and demand issue. To me, the bigger issue is when it comes to the scalpers is just how big the fake tickets are getting at. I just had a show at Westbury of all venues out in Westbury, Long Island, which has been celebrating this year or last year celebrated its 60th anniversary, and to actually have one show where we counted over 100 fake tickets come to the door.
Wow.
In a 2,800 seat theater is absolutely mind-boggling.
You at liberty to say the artist?
What was that?
Are you at liberty to say the artist?
No.
Okay.
No, I won't say what one it was. But,
A rock concert?
yeah. But, does that answer the question?
Yeah, you say buy the ticket earlier, but I've tried to buy a ticket right when it goes on sale, and literally 2 seconds it's sold out, dude. And then you go on StubHub and it's $500. I'm just cause I tried to go to Travis Scott and his sold out super quick. I was on 10 o'clock, I was on the phone ready to buy the ticket, and then I go on StubHub and it's already $500. That's what do you say to that? There's no way around that. Of buying a ticket earlier. They just, it seems like you're just defeated. There's no way to get a ticket.
Well, look, it's the popularity of the artist and it's the venue that it's in. I think that's disgusting when you're right after a show goes on. Look, as a promoter, do I love an instant sellout? Hell yes, I just saved so much money out of my marketing budget. It's the greatest thing in the world. Right. No, but the fans that bought a ticket are going to have the greatest time of their life. They're going to get to see this artist in this venue, and they're stoked that they got their ticket. But at the same time, we're not holding half the house back. We're not giving these tickets off the side to anybody. If you see something on StubHub, that's somebody who went online a second before you did, a minute before you did, and purchased that ticket. So, it's unfortunate, and I'm sorry, and I understand that, but Travis Scott, you know, there were thousands of people who got there just that much quicker than you. I know that's really cold and callous to say it that way, but
But there has been real issues with that. You know,
With what?
With selling out within 1 second, and then they find that they're on the secondary market all over the place. I mean, Bruce had to, what was that show with Bruce, whatever number of years ago, where Ticketmaster had to apologize and do whatever they had to do because they weren't available on Ticketmaster, but they were available on the secondary right away. So I feel for a lot of the kids who, there is some hanky-panking done with a number of artists where tickets go somewhere, let's put it that way.
I can't speak to what the artist does with their fan club allotment. I can't speak to what the artist does with their comps. I can't speak to that. I can tell you that with ours, it's clearly stated what goes on sale to the public, and what goes on sale to the public goes on sale to the public. I mean, that's the truth.
Right. Well, they're trying to get rid of the bots, too.
Well, and that, you know, that's one thing that's difficult. I would love the bots to go away, and I would love the bots to die. Another thing that, here's something I find funny. StubHub and Tickets Now, and, not Tickets Now, but there's been like 2 or 3 resellers, and I've gotten the biggest kick out of this, is when I talked about the illegitimacy of certain tickets. I see shows going on the secondary market before the tickets even go on sale. And the thing is, I know there's absolutely no way these people physically have tickets to the show. So they're reselling a ghost. They're reselling a hope. They're reselling a fantasy. And the thing is that if you're going to say you're going to buy this $50 ticket for $250, I'm going to make sure I find a way to get one of those tickets. And I'll eventually sell it to you. But the secondary market is, that's what I'm talking about, is the illegitimacy of tickets. So much of that stuff on the secondary market isn't really bought. 50% of it is, 50% of it's bullshit.
Back there?
I have like a completely opposite question of what just got asked. What's it like working with the Wellmont? Because I play a lot at this venue nearby, and the promoter one time came by and gave us like 50 free tickets to this show, and like a huge mob of us just went to this show. I mean, it was a great time because it was for free, but like, I don't know, I thought that was really funny. I mean, it was a Tuesday night show, so I understand, but.
I'm willing to bet I know the show you're talking about. And look, it's the economics of running a business.
Yeah.
Sometimes what did I say earlier about you book a show knowing that your break even is at a certain point? So sometimes you also have bills to pay. You've got rent, you've got insurance, you've got utilities, you've got heating. Everything goes into owning that venue. And sometimes you'll book a show where the artist expense is so low and the guarantee, you know, your expenses are one thing, and the fact is if you can get people in to drink, hopefully you sell more alcohol or you sell enough alcohol to cover your expenses of running the venue, and you'll do things that you got to do just to pay the bills. So I think I know the exact show, since you hit the key factors of 50 tickets and Tuesday night. I know the exact show you're talking about, and that was booked to paper. That's called a paper show. That's exactly why it was booked. Certain shows are booked not to sell. Certain shows are booked to just have people in your venue.
I know you mentioned.
I'm really scared of the fact that you opened up your laptop to ask this question, and I've been searching for something.
That's good. No, it's a legitimate. It's a pornography question. I'm doing this actually a research project about artist management.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned how you deal with artist managers a lot,
Yeah.
and I'm asking a lot of people in your seat all the same question. And it is, what is the single most important aspect of the music industry an artist manager needs to understand? So from where you're sitting, what do you think that one thing is?
Repeat that question again.
What is the single most important aspect of the music industry that an artist manager needs to understand?
Wow. That's a really difficult question. The single most important part of the music industry would probably be you stumped me. Understanding that it's a business.
Mhm.
That's probably the most important thing. Artists are artists and they're going to make their art, but without the flow of dollars, it's not going to get anywhere and it's not going to get to anybody. I would say understanding the music business as a business is probably the most important thing.
That's good.
Oh, am I going to get filleted for that comment?
Nah, tell them the truth.
That is the truth.
Filleted for the truth. All right. Well, okay, let's march on here. Muna wanted to know, in your experience, what genre of music is the easiest to promote and sell tickets for?
That's completely different market to market. Look, country is a real hard one to sell up here. Country down in Dallas and down in Houston is really easy to sell. Hip hop is, it depends on the market.
Depends on the geography.
Yeah.
How about in this tri-state area? It's my question first.
No, it's your question?
Yes.
In the tri-state area? I would say that classic rock is probably the easiest, shortly followed by pop.
Not granola?
What?
Not granola?
Well, that would go, well, jam band stuff is really, really, really strong, but
There's a big community of word of mouth, I think.
it's massive, yeah.
So it might be,
Maybe a tie between, classic rock is probably the top one, and then a tie of pop and jam bands. What's the most difficult? Jazz and gospel.
even more so than country up here.
Those two are the most difficult.
All right. Nick wants to know, what are your thoughts on the ticket and album bundle being a new way to increase album sales?
Ooh, who asked that?
Nick.
Nick, I like you because I just had this very exact argument with an agent today. I'll say it, I hate the album bundle, okay? It's a way in which the artist can sell more records, the record label can make their investment back in getting that, but you know what? I'm from a different generation. I believe in an LP. I believe in the experience of listening to the first side, getting a drink, turning it over, and listening to the second side, or a cassette, okay? Or even the CD. You just listen to the whole thing straight through. That's not what society is anymore. We're about purchasing a track. There's artists that can sell out an arena based on one song, okay? So a forced album bundle, I hate. And I hate it for the simple reason that it's normally put onto the ticket after all your economics of the deal have been done. After you've really thought about, okay, $39.50 should be my top price on this ticket. It really should be, and that's what the marketplace is gonna bear to sell this ticket. And then 3 days later, you're confirmed, you're getting ready to go on sale the following week. Hey, so the record label has decided we want to combo the album with the ticket. Isn't that a great idea? Okay, what's the record label doing to help promote it? Oh, well, they'll put you on their splash page. Great, but we're adding $5 to every ticket. Well, the ticket price, no. I think the ticket should be $39.50. It shouldn't be $44.50. Doesn't matter. At the same time, does it help the artist get their music out there? Yes. Does it help the artist with the record label recoup their advance if there is any sort of advance anymore? Does it get them closer to breaking even? Does it maybe get a different song out there that you wouldn't have experienced based upon wherever you heard that first song? Yes. Is there good to it? I guess there can be. But the most disgusting thing about it is the actual redemption. Okay, I mean, the redemption for the purchased album bundle is less than 30%.
Wow.
So most of the people who buy that album bundle, 1 out of 4 will actually download that record. I can't tell you it's because they already own it. I can't tell you it's because they downloaded it off of a website somewhere. I can't tell you that's the reason, but I can tell you when the record labels did their research last year, that's where they found out. 30% actually redeemed it. Now, ticket or adding it onto a ticket as an incentive, that I'm totally in for. There's an artist that I'm working with right now that I'm getting ready to put a couple of shows up with. They have a new album that's coming out next month. And I said, here's what we do. Like, everybody's that's gonna want to buy your record is gonna buy it on iTunes, is gonna buy it however. What I want to do is I want to take your new record and it's a Warner Brothers artist, how many is Warner gonna press on vinyl of this? Oh, they're gonna do a limited run of X number. Okay, well, we're talking about 10 dates here. You know, I want to talk to the product manager at Warner Brothers, and I want 1,000 copies of the vinyl. I want them to set it aside. I want you to buy it because you're the artist and you're going to get it at a cheaper rate than I am. And I want us to be able to bundle the ticket with the vinyl. So with that, I'm cool. Now, maybe that you call that a VIP package, maybe you call that a what, but I'm cool with the idea of bundling music that way because it's an option. I think you should be given the option. There is so many ways to physically properly buy music nowadays. Yes, you can still find physical in certain places. Digitally, my God, there's hundreds of places online you can go and buy any record, right? So it's not like people don't have access to music once it gets released. So I think you should always have the ability to add it to the ticket. I personally disagree with when it's a forced bundle. Yes.
So you're telling the artist to eat the cost of the vinyl?
No.
Because then isn't it technically the same thing but you're just being, I guess.
No, as an option.
Okay.
Like look, this artist who is good for 1,500 tickets a market, and they're playing in 1,500 capacity rooms, you gotta figure there's gonna be 100 people who maybe are like super fans. Like they're gonna come see them every single time they come through town, and they're probably going to download that record the day it comes out. But knowing that Warner Brothers is only gonna press 5,000 pieces of this vinyl, and 1,000 of them, 1/5 is gonna be available to people who purchase tickets. Why not have that option? And it's for a higher price. Yeah, so the artist spends $10 to buy it from the record label, where in the retail store or off of their website, they're charging $20 for it. So instead of the ticket being $30, it's $40 and you get the vinyl with it. Cool. What's wrong with that? The artist makes that $10 back. So.
James wanted to know, and you mentioned Asbury Park, that says that on the Stone Pony website, it says, local New Jersey bands, no out-of-state bands, please.
Does it?
That's what he said. He said, he was asking what's the reasoning behind that? You may not know, I mean.
Yeah, I didn't know it said that. Who asked that question?
Jancy?
Okay, so where, on the website, was that in the local bands section? Or where was it?
It's on the booking page.
On the booking page?
Yeah.
Under local bands? Because I know, look, I haven't seen the website. We don't own the Stone Pony. We're the exclusive national touring provider for them. So if it was in the section where they're talking about booking local bands and they say no out of state, it kind of goes back to the discussion I had earlier about if you can't bring 20 people with you, why should you be playing at the venue? Under the national, which it's kind of funny if it says it that way. I gotta look at that when we get out of here, because if it's under just, depending on where it's placed and what section it's at, that doesn't make sense, because almost every single band that I book at the Stone Pony isn't from New Jersey, so. But when it comes to a local band, how can you really have much of a draw if you're not from the area? And if you aren't from the area, and you do have a draw that's gonna bring people to the Stone Pony, you're probably at the national level, and then I would be the one to book, if that makes sense.
Your information's on it though.
In the same spot?
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome. I love not owning a venue. Okay. I'll have to look at that website.
Well,
tonight.
he's in
Thank
an
you.
academic institution, he's here to learn, so he's learned
There
something.
you go, I just learned something new.
So that's good. So, before we wrap it up, I'd be derelict in my responsibilities if I didn't, a lot of the questions center around two areas. One is Live Nation hiring? And two, is there an intern program? So I wondered if you might, if you have any
Yeah.
information shared.
Live Nation is always hiring for every different position, every different level. They're always hiring.
Is
All
that
you-
their web, there's a website they can go to see what's open?
Yep, all you have to do is go to the website and see what positions are open. I think it's Live Nation/careers, if I remember
But
correctly.
remember what he said, don't overreach for some position that you're not qualified for.
Right, but internships, all the time. Every department, every facet has internships.
And I
For
assume-
that, though, you don't really look at the website. That would be really more about mostly your educational institutions will have the contact through your career centers or such of who to get a hold of. If you were looking to intern or getting to know somebody, somebody in this room was looking to intern for marketing or for talent buying or for something of that nature, you come to me, let me know, and I'll set you up with the right person. If you're looking for production, I could tell you the right person to go to talk to about that. But yeah, there's internship programs for everything.
But you have to be a matriculating college student.
You do.
You have to get academic credit. You can't be,
Right, you can't intern just to intern. You have to be interning for college credit.
okay. So I promised Sean I'd get him out here at a decent hour. So I want to thank him for coming and answering questions.